A year has passed since my father died. After his passing, my mother was deeply sad, but recently she has started smiling again, and her energy is coming back. Just as we were finding peace, my husband's sudden decision turned our lives upside down. He said, "My mother agreed, so it should be fine." But I argued, "How can you think this is okay? This is our home. Why disrupt our family for yours?" Without telling me, my husband had invited his parents, who had been living with his brother and his brother's wife, to move into our home. On top of that, he cleaned out my father's untouched room without asking me. With my husband saying whatever he wanted and his parents being thoughtless, our home no longer felt like a peaceful place. My mother, feeling uncomfortable, started going out more often. I can't accept this situation. I need to find a way to get my in-laws out of our home. This is my story about how my husband and his family caused trouble in our home after my father's death. My name is Cynthia, and I'm turning 43 this year. I married Nathan when I was 31. I have a health condition that makes it hard for me to work outside. I used to work full-time, but my health issues made things difficult, so I switched to working from home. However, my income depends on how well I'm feeling, so it's not stable, and living alone wasn't an option for me. Before getting married, I lived with my parents, helping around the house while working. After marrying Nathan, we moved into a rented apartment and saved money, hoping to buy our own house someday. Things changed when Nathan's brother built a 2-generation home for his parents. My parents then suggested Nathan and I live with them in their renovated family home. They worried about my unstable income and how hard it would be for us to afford a home of our own. While my parents' offer was a relief for me, it wasn't easy for Nathan to live with his in-laws. This is where our challenges began. I wanted to respect Nathan's wishes, and he seemed happy with the idea of my parents covering all the costs. He quickly agreed to the plan, and for about 12 years, the 4 of us lived together peacefully. Even though my father was strict, Nathan's cheerful and respectful attitude kept things harmonious. My parents also gave Nathan his space, allowing him to feel relaxed when he wasn't with the family. Despite my unstable income and the fact that I couldn't have children, Nathan and I lived without major issues, supporting each other with the help of my parents. I was determined to repay their kindness, so I worked hard to earn a qualification to help support us in the future. But before I could use it, my father suddenly passed away from a heart attack. My mother was devastated by his death. She stopped eating well and was emotionally unstable for a while. During that time, I focused on supporting her. But as we adjusted to this loss, Nathan's behavior began to change. 12 years ago, when my family's home was renovated, it was expanded from 2 stories to 3. The first floor was designed for my parents, with a bedroom, a private bathroom, and a spare room that became my father's office. The second floor was shared by everyone and had the kitchen, laundry, bathroom, and a living space that my parents mainly used. The third floor was for Nathan and me, with 3 rooms, a bedroom and a living area, as well as our own toilet. We usually stayed on the 3rd floor, living our own lives there. However, after my father passed away, Nathan started spending more time on the 2nd floor. I'd ask him, "Why are you watching TV here? This is my mom's space." But he would reply, "If your mom comes, I'll move. She's not here now, so it's fine." He began relaxing in the 2nd floor living room every day, sometimes drinking and even falling asleep there. Even though he said he would leave if my mother asked, she avoided the 2nd floor when she knew Nathan was there. She became quieter and stopped using that space entirely. I tried to talk to Nathan about it, but he wouldn't listen. After my father's death, Nathan started acting more selfishly, which led to more arguments between us. We stopped talking as much, and things only got worse. One evening, about a year after my father's death, my mother and I returned from shopping to find something shocking. The door to the 1st floor storeroom was wide open, and everything from my father's office was gone. In its place were an old chest of drawers, a bed, and stacks of cardboard boxes. Confused and upset, I decided to find out what was going on. I hurried to the 2nd floor living room, where Nathan was sitting with my mother-in-law, and my father-in-law was drinking with him. I pulled Nathan into the hallway and asked, "What's going on?" He said, My mom isn't getting along with my brother's wife, so I had no choice but to invite them here. I decided to let them use the storeroom. His response was more self-centered than usual. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, angry. We haven't been talking much lately, and if we did, it would just turn into a fight, he replied, justifying his decision. What about my dad's belongings? You didn't throw them away, did you? Yes, I did. They were just in the way, he said casually. Without saying anything to us, Nathan had thrown out my father's things. I couldn't hold back my anger and yelled, loud enough for my in-laws and my mother to hear, tell them to leave right now. And bring back everything you threw away. Nathan just nodded calmly, but I knew he wasn't likely to do anything. Whenever we fought, he would say whatever was needed to calm things down, but never follow through. Listen to me, Nathan, I shouted, frustrated. Suddenly, I heard my mother's voice behind me. She had quietly come up the stairs and was signaling me to be quiet by placing her finger on her lips. Shaking her head, she said softly, "It's late. Let them stay tonight." My mother was trying to be considerate, even toward my in-laws. Later, when I tried to talk to Nathan again, he avoided the conversation, using his parents as an excuse. The next morning, while I was thinking about my father, I found Nathan passed out drunk in the living room. The table was covered in dirty dishes, adding to my frustration. I decided to start doing the laundry to avoid cleaning up the mess, but my mother-in-law threw her own laundry at me and said, "Cynthia, can you take care of this too? You're wonderful. Not only do you wash for your family, but you also do your parents' laundry." Kathleen only takes care of her own family, she added, complaining about Nathan's brother's wife. I was stunned. Did she really plan to stay here? This is the house my parents built, not hers. After she left the room, I tried to wake Nathan, but he was too groggy and wouldn't get up. Frustrated, I went back to the third-floor bedroom and called Nathan's brother. "Yeah, Nathan told me about this," he said. "He told you?" "I had no idea," I replied angrily. "This is the Owen family house. It's not right for your family to move in here. Please come and take them back." As I hung up the phone, I felt a growing sense of urgency to get my home back under control. If I didn't act quickly, Nathan's parents would end up staying longer. I asked Nathan's brother to pick them up, but he replied, "I've talked to Nathan, but the situation between Kathleen and our mother is beyond fixing. It seems Mom doesn't want to live here either. I'm sorry, but you'll have to manage." "Wait a minute," I said, trying to stop him, but he ignored me and cut off the conversation, leaving the responsibility entirely on me. It was clear neither Nathan nor his brother cared about my concerns. Feeling helpless, I went back to the second floor. My mother was in the living room, cleaning up the mess, even though she had just woken up. "Mom, please let me handle this." "Go wash your face," I said. I should have left it for Nathan to deal with, but I ended up cleaning it myself. While my mother was in the bathroom, I started doing the dishes. Nathan woke up and was rummaging through the refrigerator behind me. I stopped washing and turned to him. "Did you really throw away Dad's belongings?" I asked. "How many times do I have to say it?" "Yes, I threw them away," he replied, irritated. "How could you do that without asking us, the family?" I protested. "They were just in the way," he said casually. I couldn't tell if this was just his way of thinking or if it was influenced by his relationship with my father. My mother and I had wanted to keep my dad's things a bit longer, but Nathan easily decided to throw them out. No matter how much I explained, it felt like he didn't understand, or didn't want to. I was close to giving up on Nathan, but the thought of my mother being upset again troubled me deeply. "I've told you not to throw away other people's things without asking," I said. But Nathan just ignored me. "I called your brother," I added. Nathan turned around, surprised. "Why?" "I asked him to pick your parents up. This is our family's home. It's not possible for all of us to live together." Hearing this, Nathan's expression darkened, and he raised his voice. "Are you bullying my parents?" he demanded angrily. "I made it clear to your brother that this isn't their home," I said firmly. But Nathan shouted, "There's nowhere else for them to go." His angry words overwhelmed me, leaving me feeling defeated and cornered. I quickly replied, "You say there's nowhere else for them to go, But isn't your brother's house an option? Why not suggest that? Nathan, in a cold but firm tone, said, they can't go back there. Then they need to find another place, I countered. This house was built by my parents. But Nathan didn't want to continue the conversation. As he left the room, he muttered, you always say it's your parents' house, but don't forget, it's my home too. I couldn't deny what he said. This house was also Nathan's home now. If I kept insisting it was only my parents' house, it could make him feel unwelcome. Still, my parents had never accepted rent from us, even when I brought it up before. They always said, you'll need to maintain this house yourself one day. Save your money instead. Remembering this, I knew I needed to prioritize my mother's feelings. My main concern was how to communicate this to Nathan in a way that wouldn't disrupt the peace in our family. How could I make him understand our position? While I was deep in thought, my mother came into the living room upstairs. She must have overheard our argument. Calmly, she shared her opinion. If they have nowhere else to go, they can stay here until they find a place. Nathan's parents are also part of your family. Nathan jumped in, saying smugly, see? Even your mother agrees. His attitude annoyed me, but I decided to follow my mother's suggestion. Fine, I said. But they need to look for a new place to live. Okay, Nathan replied vaguely. I wasn't sure if they would really start looking, but I was determined to hold them to that promise. 4 days later, I got an unexpected phone call. The voice on the other end said something that filled me with excitement. Is that really true? I asked, surprised. I had contacted a junk removal service to see if they still had my father's discarded belongings, and they confirmed they were safely stored. Without hesitation, I called a storage company I had researched earlier and arranged to have my father's things moved there. While Nathan's parents were still staying at our house, I planned to retrieve the items and store them safely. Before leaving to pick them up, I went to my mother's bedroom on the first floor to share the good news. But she wasn't there. I searched the entire house, checking every corner, but I couldn't find her anywhere. I went to the second floor living room. When I entered, my mother-in-law noticed me and smiled, her face red from drinking even though it was still daylight. Oh, Cynthia, what's up? She said, clearly intoxicated. Nathan had come home from work and was sitting in the living room, still in his work clothes, enjoying a drink. The normally tidy second-floor living room had become a mess over the past few days. The table was covered with empty cans and dirty dishes. Even though I had asked my in-laws to stay on the third floor, they had spent the day on the second floor again. It was becoming clear that their promise to find a place to live was just empty words. They hadn't even tried. I walked over to Nathan, who was relaxing on the couch, and asked him to talk in the hallway. Why don't your parents use the third floor? I asked. He replied, because their legs hurt. But the second floor is my family's living space, and my mom needs it too, I said. You want people with sore legs to climb the stairs? Maybe your mom should move upstairs instead, Nathan retorted. Arguing with Nathan was exhausting, so I shifted the topic. Do you know where my mom is? I asked. She went to a net cafe, Nathan replied casually. I was surprised. What? Yeah. She said she's going out with friends. Your mom is pretty modern and youthful, isn't she? She's good with computers too. She'll probably be back tonight, he said, as if it were no big deal. While Nathan praised my mother's tech skills, I couldn't imagine her going to a net cafe. My mother used a computer regularly, but it was a desktop located on the second floor. Since it wasn't a laptop, she couldn't take it with her. That's when it clicked. She went out because she couldn't use the computer here anymore. Can't we let my mom have the second floor room? I asked Nathan again. It's where her computer is, and it's where she keeps important things. There's no TV in her first floor bedroom, so she has nothing to do there. She must feel lost. Nathan sighed and replied in an annoyed tone, My parents are here because their legs hurt. Your mom understands that, so there shouldn't be a problem. How can you say that? I countered. This is the Owen family's house. Why should my mom lose her space while your parents take over the second floor and relax here? Nathan seemed completely unable to see my point of view. I realized my mother had likely gone to the net cafe because she felt like she no longer had a place in her own home. The friends she mentioned were probably just an excuse to leave the house. I guessed that my mother's words were meant to be kind to Nathan, but he seemed to take them literally. "You only think about your parents," he yelled. "My parents don't know anyone around here. They can't just go out and meet friends like your mom can. She has friends nearby, so it's good for her to go out during the day. Or she can just use the third floor." Nathan's anger caught me off guard. I had never seen him so upset, and I didn't know how to respond. Inside, though, I felt my feelings for him fading. Even in the face of his shouting, I stayed surprisingly calm. It became clear to me that living together with him was no longer possible. Unable to say anything, I left the house. Before going to pick up my father's belongings, I stopped by City Hall. Later that evening, I went to my mother's room on the first floor and handed her the key to the storage unit I had rented. "Keep this key for now," I told her. "Store whatever you need there. Eventually, we'll bring Dad's things back to the storeroom." My mother listened quietly and then placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Cynthia, don't treat his parents badly," she said. "I don't know how much longer I'll be around, and after I'm gone, they'll be the only family you have. You're not strong physically, and you might need their help someday." She smiled softly, but I could only shake my head. Since my father's death, I had been deeply disappointed in Nathan's behavior, and my frustration with his parents grew stronger every day. I took out a document I had received at City Hall and spoke with determination. "I'm thinking about getting a divorce," I said. My mother looked at the divorce papers quietly, studying them carefully. After a few minutes of silence, she sighed and started to speak. "Your father never took a single penny from you," she said. "He wanted you to save for your future. But that wasn't the only reason." This was the first time I had heard such a thing. She leaned closer and spoke in a soft voice, careful not to be overheard. "After we're gone, we wanted you, with your health challenges, to be able to stand up to Nathan on equal footing. It's best if you two can get along, but life is unpredictable. Even if you divorce, we made sure this house would be yours. Having your own home means you'll be okay. You can manage with government support and your own income." She gave me a warm smile, but her face grew serious. "So, divorce, huh?" she said thoughtfully. Suddenly, her phone vibrated on the table, interrupting the moment. The faint sound grew louder as she picked it up, tilting her head at the screen. She noticed a stream of notifications from the same social media app and looked puzzled. I tried to process everything happening. My mother, looking satisfied, said, "We've become a topic of conversation." A few days later, in the morning, I handed the divorce papers to Nathan. He looked at them and sneered. "So, if things don't go your way, you want a divorce? Fine, let's do it. But I'll sell this house," he declared, snatching the papers from my hand. What Nathan didn't realize was that selling the house wasn't an option. It was impossible. The house, originally in my mother's name, had already been transferred to me to secure my future. "If I hadn't married you, I could have had kids," he insulted me, but his words no longer hurt. I knew the situation he would soon face. "Don't regret this," I said calmly, watching him sulk as he clumsily handled his things. At that moment, the intercom buzzed. I knew my mother was at the door, so I ignored it and went to do the laundry. "Please, come this way." I heard my mother's cheerful voice as footsteps from several movers echoed through the house. Nathan must have gone downstairs to see what was happening because moments later, I heard his panicked voice and my in-laws shouting. It turned out that my mother had arranged for movers to take my in-laws' belongings back to Nathan's brother's house. "What are you doing? Why are you doing this without asking?" Nathan yelled. But my mother, calm and prepared for this moment, cut him off firmly. "You did what you wanted, didn't you?" she said. When Nathan threw away my father's belongings, my mother had kept quiet, thinking about my future after she was gone. But now, with a divorce on the table, she decided there was no reason to tolerate the situation any longer. She swiftly evicted my in-laws from the house. Nathan tried to stop the movers, but then his phone rang. Confused, he answered it. Judging by the snippets of conversation I overheard, it seemed to be a friend calling him about some news. Suddenly, Nathan turned on the TV in a panic. "What is this?" "About us," he stammered, staring at the screen. To his shock, a morning news program was showing a photo of our house, along with a story linked to it. I realized my mother had been venting her frustrations on social media. Her posts had gained significant attention. I remembered the night we had talked about divorce, when she first mentioned it. "We've become a topic of conversation," she had said, showing me the app on her phone. Her post had started with the line, "My daughter's husband is causing trouble, and we might lose our house." It had gone viral, earning many likes and shares, and eventually caught the attention of a major newspaper. Although my mother had no plans to give an interview, she cooperated with the reporters when she learned I had decided to divorce. She wanted the story to help me as I moved forward. I watched our house appear on TV. Beside me, my mother whispered, "Now Nathan won't be able to stay here anymore." Her face looked lively and full of determination. I glanced at Nathan, who was panicking about the news reaching his workplace, and felt nothing but cold detachment. The media has incredible power, spreading information faster than anyone expects. Once something catches attention, people dig into everything: who owns the house, where it's located, and every little detail. This wave of reports could lead to unpredictable consequences, and our family story was now part of that. Photos of Nathan, my in-laws, and our family were soon shared online, creating major changes in our lives. Nathan acted quickly. He filed the divorce papers and left the house with his belongings. Perhaps this was his way of trying to fix the mess, but I didn't care. After he left, peace finally returned to our home. My father's cherished items were safely restored to their original place in the storeroom. Now, my mother and I live a quiet and peaceful life. I know there might come a time when I'll live alone, but even then, I plan to protect and cherish this house. This home, inherited from my parents, is more than just a structure. It holds memories, love, and the bonds of our family. For me, it's a symbol of hope, connecting the past and present, and I feel it's my duty to take care of it. Then I heard something unexpected. My mother-in-law said, "I've planned a trip to Hawaii this time," smiling as though everything was normal. Her words raised serious doubts in my mind. How could she think of traveling abroad when she was burdened with so much debt and struggling to make her monthly payments? I couldn't stay quiet. "Why are you going to Hawaii alone? And what about the money I send you every month? How can you afford this?" I demanded, my voice rising in anger. My mother-in-law looked confused, as if she didn't understand my frustration. But then the truth came out, something I wasn't ready for. She revealed that this entire situation was part of a scheme my husband had been planning. I was stunned. "My name is Kathleen, and I'm 37 years old, working as a regular employee at a company and living a fairly ordinary life. It's been 6 years since I married Douglas, and until recently, we had lived peacefully without any major problems. But now, everything had changed. This all started after the recent death of my father-in-law. He was a kind and quiet man who always cared for us as a couple. Thanks to him, I felt naturally welcomed into my husband's family. His passing was a terrible loss, and I struggled to accept it. One evening, not long after his funeral, Douglas brought something up during dinner. "Kathleen, this might sound sudden, but I've been thinking about something," he started. "What is it?" I asked, sensing something was off. "I want to start sending financial support to my parents' house next month." "Support? Why? What's the reason for that?" I asked, confused. He hesitated before replying. "Since my father passed away, I think my mom is struggling financially," Douglas said. "Wait a minute," I interrupted him. "I know your father's passing is difficult, but isn't your sister living with your mom?" "Yes, that's right," Douglas replied. His sister lives at their parents' house, works for a prestigious company, and earns much more than Douglas does. Their father had also worked for a well-known company until his retirement. Surely, his retirement money would have gone to his wife. On the other hand, Douglas and I both work for small to medium-sized companies, and our combined income is probably below average for our age group. "Douglas, I don't think your mom and sister are struggling with money. So, why are you asking us to send money?" I asked. The answer he gave shocked me. "It might seem like they're doing well, but my mom has a lot of debt." "What?" "Your mom has a huge debt." I couldn't believe it. "Yes," he said, looking uncomfortable. But she hasn't told my sister about it at all. That's why I thought we should help her. What about your dad's retirement money? I asked. Most of it went to his hospital bills, surgery costs, and funeral expenses, Douglas explained. Now my mom is in a really tough financial situation. I sat quietly for a moment, processing what he had said. That's really hard, I admitted. Yes, it is, Douglas said. I know I'm asking a lot, but I really want to help her. He bowed his head deeply, showing how serious he was. I felt torn. My mother-in-law had helped us as a couple many times before. When I was looking for my current job, she took over all the household chores and often came over to cook dinner. When Douglas changed jobs and we were struggling with living expenses, she secretly gave him money to help us. I had always been grateful for her kindness, and every time I thanked her, she responded with such polite gratitude. Thanks to her support, we had managed to get through many tough times. Now that she was in trouble, I couldn't just ignore her situation. Thinking about everything she had done for us, I strongly felt the need to help her. After some hesitation, I finally agreed to Douglas's proposal. From that day, we started supporting my mother-in-law financially. To make it work, we became stricter about saving. We weren't living extravagantly before, but we cut back even more, simplifying our meals and switching to cheaper products for daily necessities. Douglas started working late every day, coming home much later at night. But then something happened. Perhaps because of the stress and fatigue from our new routine, I developed a fever and fell ill. When I was getting ready to go to the hospital, having called in sick to work, my husband stopped me. Wait a minute. Are you really going to the hospital? He asked. Yes, I am, I replied. It's just a fever, isn't it? There's no need to go to the hospital for a mild fever, especially when we're trying to save money, he said. I was shocked. But what if it's a viral fever like the flu? We have fever reducers at home, he said firmly. Just take those and rest. You'll get better. Going to the hospital is a waste of money. That's not true, I protested. Listen to me, he said. No matter what, don't go to the hospital. Remember, we're saving money. Left with no choice, I stayed home. I ended up bedridden for 4 days, feeling worse about my husband's attitude than about the fever. From that moment, my frustration with him began to grow. Months later, we visited my in-laws' house to check on my mother-in-law. When I stepped into the living room, I noticed clothes and travel bags scattered everywhere. Are you sorting things out? I asked. My mother-in-law replied with a big smile. Oh, actually, I'm going to Hawaii this time. A trip to Hawaii? I repeated, confused. Yes, that's right. Christine said she'd come with me. Kathleen, would you like to join us? She asked cheerfully. I was stunned. Before I could respond, my sister-in-law Christine clapped her hands in excitement. That's a great idea, she said. Wait, what is this? I thought. We've been sending them money, and now they're happily planning an international trip? This can't be real. Oblivious to my silence, my mother-in-law and Christine kept chatting excitedly. I'm so thrilled. It's my first time going to Hawaii, my mother-in-law said. Me too, Christine added. And it's surprisingly affordable this time of year. Exactly. Kathleen, don't worry about anything. If you come with us, we'll cover your travel expenses, my mother-in-law said, smiling. Really? Christine chimed in. We've been so grateful to you since Ethan got married. I stood there speechless as they continued talking. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore and interrupted their cheerful conversation. Stop joking. A trip abroad? What are you even thinking? I said, raising my voice. Startled, they froze with their mouths open. Kathleen, what's wrong? My mother-in-law asked. Did we say something odd? Maybe you don't like traveling? Did we push you too much? It's not about that, I shouted. How can you even think of inviting me on a trip? Do you understand our situation? Kathleen calmed down. Why are you so angry? Christine asked nervously. If you have the money for a trip, shouldn't you be paying off your debts first? I said, my frustration spilling out. Debts? My mother-in-law asked, confused. I let out everything I'd been holding in. We're working hard, cutting back on everything, barely managing to save any money, and yet you're planning a luxury trip abroad? When I'm sick, we can't afford a hospital visit, but we prioritize sending you money, I said through tears. And yet, how can you calmly plan a trip abroad? Please, think about our situation for once. As I poured out my emotions, I felt tears streaming down my face. I wasn't sure if it was from anger, sadness, or both. What I did know was how painful our frugal lifestyle had been. Crying, I collapsed to the floor. Douglas rushed over, shocked. Hey, what are you saying to my mom? Stop this. But I tried to explain. That's enough. We're going home, Douglas said, pulling me up forcefully. At that moment, my mother-in-law spoke quietly. Wait a minute. What debts are you talking about?
What?
But don't you have a huge debt? I asked, confused. Her expression changed, and she said, No, there's no such thing. We still have my husband's pension and inheritance. And I wouldn't be planning an overseas trip if I had debts.
What?
I whispered, stunned. In that instant, the truth hit me like a wave. Everything started to make sense. The reason Douglas's income hadn't increased despite his constant overtime, why I had been getting thinner and sicker despite our strict savings, and why my normally polite mother-in-law never thanked us for the money we sent. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who had overheard everything, now looked at Douglas with suspicion. Douglas, what's the meaning of this? Kathleen says she sent money because you said we had debts. What's going on? His mother demanded. Douglas's face turned pale as he stammered. No, it's not like that. Actually, it's different. How is it different? His mother snapped. Explain yourself properly. Douglas hesitated, fumbling for words. Well, At that moment, my patience completely ran out. I looked him in the eye, my voice firm. What's all this about? There are no debts for your mother or sister. So where did all the money I gave you every month go? Douglas began mumbling again. Well, Stop lying, I said firmly. Tell me the truth. Finally, he blurted out the truth, his voice barely audible. Actually, I was invited by a colleague, and I ended up going to nightclubs. Nightclubs? I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. Yeah, well, he stammered. I just got carried away without realizing it. I stared at him, stunned. The sacrifices we had made, the stress, my health, all for his selfish indulgence. My love for him vanished in that moment. I can't believe it, I said, my voice trembling with anger. You went to such places, and it hasn't even been long since your father passed away. That was around the time you started talking about sending money, wasn't it? I'm sorry, really sorry, Douglas said, his head down. I just went for a change of pace. I didn't think it was a big deal. A change of pace? That's your excuse? How can you say that after using my hard-earned money for nightclubs? I can never forgive this, I shot back. No, it's not like that. I never meant to hurt you, Kathleen. I just got a bit carried away, that's all. I really regret it, he pleaded. But his words meant nothing to me anymore. Trust, once broken, especially between husband and wife, is not easily regained. His lies, his insincerity, and his selfishness had completely extinguished any love I had left for him. No matter how many apologies he gave, I couldn't forgive him. I couldn't take it anymore. With despair rising in my chest, I spoke my final words to him. I'm fed up. Saying you didn't mean to hurt me is a joke. Not only did you lie to me about needing money, but you also forced me to save while I was sick, just so you could enjoy yourself at nightclubs. It's disgusting. Christine, my sister-in-law, gasped in the background as I continued. I've been sacrificing everything for your mother, saving on food, daily necessities, clothing. I've endured it all. Do you even understand what that effort cost me? I can't see you as family anymore. Someone like you doesn't deserve that title. Douglas tried to defend himself, stammering, I only went to nightclubs, that's all. Oh, and the drinks you enjoyed with the money I worked so hard to save while I was sick must have tasted great, didn't they? I said sarcastically. No, it wasn't like that. It was for work. He blurted. I don't want to hear another word. I shouted. I'm done. I'm leaving. Wait, Kathleen, please. I need you. Douglas begged. What now? Go have as much fun as you want at the nightclubs and see how it feels when I'm gone, I said coldly. By the way, I want every penny of the money I gave you back. Pay it all back. Realizing the gravity of the situation, my mother-in-law and Christine stepped in, looking ashamed. Kathleen, I'm so sorry, my mother-in-law said. I can't believe my foolish son would do something like this. It's truly shameful. Mother, please don't apologize. It's not your fault, Christine said, looking equally distressed. But we have a responsibility too. We'll do whatever we can to make this right. Kathleen, I'm so sorry as well, Christine said softly. My brother has caused so much trouble.
Don't worry about it, I said.
But I've made up my mind. I'm divorcing him. I'm truly thankful to both of you, but it's time for me to say goodbye, I said. Both my mother-in-law and Christine nodded, tears streaming down their faces. Mother, Christine, thank you for everything you've done for me up until now, I said with sincerity. At that moment, Douglas called out to me, his voice filled with pain. He knelt on the floor, pleading. Kathleen, please forgive me. I really regret everything I've done. Before I could respond, Christine stepped forward and slapped him across the face. Douglas stood there in shock, his cheek red and swollen. Christine glared at him and said, I can't believe you've done something so horrible. How much more did you need to hurt Kathleen? Lying to her to take money meant for family support, refusing to let her go to the hospital, and then spending that money at nightclubs? How could you be so heartless? I'm ashamed to call you my brother. Wait, just listen to me. Douglas pleaded. What's the point now? Christine snapped. You forced Kathleen to save and suffer for months. That's the truth, isn't it? Mom, and I will never forgive you. Never come near us again, do you understand? Don't ever show your face to us. With tears in her eyes, Christine grabbed Douglas, dragged him outside, and slammed the door. She locked it, ignoring his desperate pleas from the other side. No matter how much he begged, the door stayed shut. Kathleen, I'm so sorry, Christine said, turning to me. There's not much I can say to make this better, but please forget about him and find happiness. She hugged me tightly, and I could feel her sincerity. After thanking her and my mother-in-law one last time, I left their house. I soon moved out of the home I had shared with Douglas and found a new place near my workplace. Since I already had a stable job, I didn't face much difficulty living on my own after the divorce. I contacted a lawyer I knew to handle the legal process, and it was clear that Douglas was at fault. The divorce was finalized quickly. I also claimed the money Douglas had fraudulently taken from me, along with compensation. I ensured that he paid the full amount. He was forced to pay in a lump sum, leaving him in a far worse financial position than before. I heard that his life now revolves around endless overtime and sleepless nights working to make ends meet. Naturally, he no longer has time or money to visit the nightclubs he once enjoyed. As for me, I've moved on, finding peace and stability after the divorce. Douglas is now just someone from my past, a man consumed by his own mistakes. I received several messages from my ex-husband. I was wrong. Please forgive me. I'm not going to nightclubs anymore. I don't want us to get back together. I'm just really in trouble. Can you lend me some money? You're the only one I can rely on. It was all about money again. I felt nothing but pity for him. Now that he's finished making all the payments he owed me, I'm considering blocking his contact completely. On the other hand, I still keep in touch with my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. They worry about me and check in with me regularly, even after the divorce. Just the other day, when they saw how much better I was doing, my mother-in-law was moved to tears. Kathleen, I'm so happy to see you doing well, she said. Mother, don't worry about me. I can live on my own, I assured her. I always believed you would be okay, Kathleen. But remember, if you ever need anything, you can rely on me and Christine, she said warmly. Thank you so much, I replied. Then Christine added with a smile, let's go to Hawaii together next time. Just the three of us. Of course. I'm looking forward to it, I said. Without the support of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, I don't think I could have gotten through the challenges of my divorce. They genuinely wish for my happiness, and because of their encouragement, I've vowed to live my life with all my strength.